A continent holds 15 secrets that refuse to be solved. Across the Americas, from deep rainforests to high deserts, lie archaeological mysteries that completely challenge the official story of human history. By the end of this exploration, you will see the ancient past not as a settled record, but as a collection of open questions that could rewrite everything we think we know. We will stand before a lost city consumed by jungle and examine a single coin that hints at voyages forgotten by time. What do these persistent puzzles tell us about the ambition and fragility of ancient cultures? The first mystery begins where the map ends, in a wilderness so dense it has swallowed cities whole. For centuries, whispers passed among explorers and local communities about a legendary white city hidden in the remote rainforests of Honduras. They called it the City of the Monkey God, a place of towering stone and forgotten splendor. Most dismissed these tales as pure folklore, the kind of story told around campfires. Then modern technology peered through the green veil. Using advanced aerial surveys, researchers detected something astonishing beneath the unbroken canopy. The sensors revealed not random jungle, but the stark, geometric outlines of plazas, mounds, and what appeared to be a sprawling urban layout. The legend, it seemed, had a foundation in truth. Reaching the site required a monumental effort, a journey into one of the most isolated regions on the continent. What the archaeologists found on the ground confirmed the aerial data and surpassed their hopes. They documented extensive earthworks, ceremonial platforms, and a collection of finely carved stone sculptures that had rested undisturbed for centuries. The artifacts suggested a society with complex cultural practices and a high degree of organization, a civilization that flourished in profound isolation from the well-known Maya to the north. Yet for all that has been found, the fundamental questions remain unanswered. Who were these people? What language did they speak? And what gods did they honor? Most hauntingly, why did they leave their city to be reclaimed by the roots and vines? The jungle protects its secrets with a relentless grip, and each answer seems to spawn 10 new questions. This discovery does more than add a new pin to the archaeological map. It fundamentally challenges the old idea that the interior of the Americas was a largely empty wilderness. Instead, it hints at a tapestry of societies, some of which rose and fell without ever entering the historical record. The lost city of the monkey god stands as a powerful reminder that our understanding of the past is always provisional, and that the next great discovery might be waiting just beyond the next ridge, hidden in plain sight. Far from the tangled green of Honduras, a different kind of mystery lies exposed under a relentless sun. In the stark, arid plains of southern Peru, an ancient canvas of pale stone and dark earth stretches to the horizon. Here, the Nazca culture created something that defies simple explanation. Between 500 years before the Common Era and 500 years after, they meticulously moved countless tons of dark surface gravel to reveal the lighter soil beneath, etching a gallery of colossal images onto the desert floor. The scale is almost incomprehensible from the ground. A hummingbird with wings spread wide, a spider with impossibly long legs, a twisting monkey with a curled tail, each one a perfect geometric form spanning hundreds of feet. Some designs are so vast, their true shape only becomes clear from high above the earth. This fact alone ignites the central puzzle. How, and more importantly why, would a people without powered flight create art meant to be seen from the sky? The method of construction is a testament to human ingenuity. Researchers believe the Nazca used simple stakes and ropes, scaling up small models with remarkable precision through a system of straight lines and careful measurement. They mastered their landscape, using the consistent wind and dry climate as a partner in preservation. The how is a brilliant feat of engineering. The why remains a profound enigma that has fueled debate for decades. Were these sprawling lines and figures a giant astronomical calendar, aligning with celestial events to mark seasons for planting and harvest? Some certainly point to key positions of the sun and stars. Could they have been sacred pathways, walked during important rituals to commune with deities believed to dwell in the mountains and sky? The very act of walking the lines may have held deep spiritual meaning. Or perhaps they were offerings, messages of devotion meant to be seen by powerful beings looking down. The Nazca left no written language to tell us, and their voices are silent. This silence is what makes the lines so powerfully evocative. They are a message without a key, a signature on a landscape that we can see clearly but cannot fully read. They force us to confront the limits of our understanding. We can admire the technical skill, but the intention, the heart of the creation, remains just out of reach. They invite us not to a single answer, but to a lasting state of wonder, a reminder that ancient peoples saw their world through a lens of meaning that we are still striving to bring into focus. While the Nazca left their messages for the sky, another civilization built its legacy directly into the earth. In the fertile floodplains of the Mississippi River, where the states of Illinois and Missouri now meet, a city once rose that would have stunned any European visitor of its time. This was Cahokia, a sprawling metropolis that, at its zenith around the year 1050, was home to as many as 20,000 people. To put that into perspective, its population rivaled that of London during the same era. The heart of this city was not a palace of stone, but a monumental feat of engineering made of soil. Monk's Mound, the central pyramid, is a flat-topped earthen structure that covers over 14 acres at its base, making its footprint larger than that of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Imagine the collective effort, the countless baskets of earth moved by hand over generations to create such a central symbol of community and power. Surrounding it were more than 120 other mounds, serving as platforms for important buildings, markers of social status, and sacred burial sites. The city's layout was a masterpiece of urban planning, with vast, open plazas designed for public gatherings and markets, and aligned neighborhoods that suggest a sophisticated social order. One of the most intriguing discoveries is what researchers call Woodhenge, a large circle of wooden posts used to track the movements of the sun, marking solstices and equinoxes with precision. This tells us the Cahokians were not just builders, but keen astronomers who woven the cycles of the cosmos into the fabric of their daily and ceremonial life. They were a connected people, part of a vast trading network that brought seashells from the Gulf Coast, copper from the Great Lakes, and mica from the Appalachians to this vibrant hub. Then, almost as suddenly as it ascended, Cahokia's light began to dim. By the 1400s, this great city was silent. The mounds stood empty and the plazas grew still. The people dispersed, leaving behind no written chronicles, no stone carvings that clearly state the reason for their departure. So what happened to this thriving heart of ancient North America? The mystery of Cahokia's decline is a puzzle with several possible pieces. Some researchers point to environmental strain, suggesting that centuries of intensive farming and tree clearing may have led to resource depletion and soil exhaustion. Others see evidence of social unrest or shifts in political power that could have fractured the society from within. There are also clues in the climate record of the time, which indicate a period of unpredictable weather, including major floods that would have devastated the river-based agriculture the city depended upon. Perhaps it was a combination of these pressures, a perfect storm of challenges that ultimately led the people to make a difficult choice to leave their grand creation behind. Cahokia's story is a powerful and humbling lesson in scale and impermanence. It forces us to reconsider the narrative of pre-colonial North America as a land of scattered, nomadic tribes. Here was a complex cosmopolitan center that rose, flourished, and faded on its own terms. Its silent mounds are not just relics, they are a question posed to the modern world. What does it take to sustain a civilization, and what causes even the greatest of them to eventually turn back to the earth? A single coin can carry the weight of an entire historical possibility. While Cahokia's mounds speak of a complex indigenous world, another artifact whispers of a potential connection from across the Atlantic. In the year 1957, archaeologists were excavating a site in the state of Maine, a place once inhabited by the Penobscot Nation. Their work focused on understanding the daily life and trade patterns of this community. Among the stone tools and pottery fragments, they found something that did not belong. It was a small, worn silver coin. After careful analysis, experts made a startling identification. This was a Norse penny, minted in Norway between the years 1065 and 1080. That places its creation squarely during the Viking Age, centuries before Christopher Columbus's famous voyage. The immediate question is as simple as it is revolutionary. How did a coin from medieval Scandinavia end up buried at a Native American site in New England? The most tantalizing explanation is also the most direct. Could Norse explorers from their known settlement at Elance Ox Meadows in Newfoundland have sailed further south along the coast, perhaps even reaching the shores of present-day Maine? The sagas mention voyages to a place they called Vinland, a region described as rich with grapes and timber. While Elance Ox Meadows is confirmed as a Norse base, the exact boundaries of the lands they explored remain a heated debate. This coin could be physical proof of those southward journeys, a lost piece of Viking travel far beyond the established map. Yet the mystery is not so easily solved. The coin was found alone. No other Norse artifacts like distinctive iron nails, broken tools, or pieces of ship planking were discovered at the site. This solitary nature leads to other plausible theories. Perhaps the coin arrived not on a Viking longship, but through the vast and sophisticated indigenous trade networks that crisscrossed the continent. A Norse object acquired in Newfoundland could have been traded from hand to hand, community to community, over hundreds of miles and many years, eventually finding its way to Maine as a curiosity or a valuable piece of material. This would still indicate a fascinating, if indirect, connection between the Old World and the New, long before sustained European contact. Then there is the question of context. Could it be a modern hoax, a coin planted at the site either by accident or intention? The archaeologists who discovered it were respected professionals, and the excavation records are considered reliable, which argues against deliberate fraud. But the very fact that we must consider it highlights the coin's frustrating ambiguity. It is an outlier, an anomaly that does not fit neatly into any established narrative. The Maine penny, as it is known, is a perfect example of an archaeological enigma. It is a data point of one. It offers a thrilling hint, a whisper of a story about bold explorers and far-reaching connections, but it refuses to provide the rest of the chapter. It challenges historians to keep an open mind, reminding us that the past may hold surprises that our current evidence cannot yet fully support. This tiny piece of silver forces a profound question. Do we need a single artifact to rewrite a history book? Or does it simply tell us that the edges of our maps have always been more porous, more connected than we once dared to believe? Smooth, round stones the size of beach balls, and some as tall as a person, lie scattered in the river deltas and jungles of southern Costa Rica. They are the stone spheres of the Diquis, and their near-perfect geometry is so startling it feels otherworldly. Crafted over 1,000 years ago, these orbs are not natural formations. They are the deliberate, painstaking work of a pre-Columbian people who shaped raw, brutally hard granodiorite boulders into spheres of astonishing precision. Using only stone hammers and meticulous abrasion, artisans would have worked for generations, slowly chipping and grinding away imperfections until the surface was smooth and the form approached mathematical perfection. The technical skill involved is undeniable, a clear marker of a sophisticated culture with master crafters. But this mastery only deepens the central, haunting question. Why would a society invest such immense, generational effort into creating hundreds of these heavy, perfect objects? The silence that follows is profound. Unlike pyramids or temples, a sphere offers no obvious function. It is not a shelter, a storage space, or a defensive wall. Its purpose is purely symbolic, and that symbolism has been completely erased by time. Some researchers have proposed they were markers of social power, placed near the homes of important leaders as symbols of authority and control over both labor and landscape. Others look to the skies, suggesting the spheres could have been arranged in patterns mirroring constellations, serving as a permanent, earthly map of the heavens for ritual or calendrical purposes. A few have even noted that some spheres were found aligned in relation to important structures, perhaps forming sight lines for ceremonial pathways. Yet here lies the frustrating twist in the mystery. Over the centuries, many of these spheres were moved from their original positions by agricultural work, treasure hunters, or even as lawn ornaments. This disturbance of the archaeological context means we may never know how they were truly arranged, severing our last tangible clue to their intended meaning. They sit today as isolated monuments, beautiful but disconnected from the story they were meant to tell. This is what makes the spheres so powerfully evocative. They are a perfect expression of a mystery. We can admire the immense dedication, the artistic vision, and the technical prowess required to create them. We can logically theorize about their use, but the core intention, the cultural heartbeat that gave them purpose, is lost. They remind us that not all archaeological treasures are puzzles to be solved. Some are meant to be contemplated, permanent questions carved in stone that challenge our need for easy answers. They embody the idea that a civilization can leave behind a legacy of breathtaking beauty whose original language we can no longer speak. A perfect sphere is a statement of intent, but a tower is a question of identity. In a quiet park in Newport, Rhode Island, a singular stone structure stands apart from the colonial houses and historic streets that surround it. This is the Newport Tower, a circular edifice of rough fieldstone held together with mortar, featuring a series of distinctive arched windows and a fireplace built into its interior wall. To the casual observer, it might look like the ruin of an old mill or a forgotten garden folly. But this unassuming tower has been the center of a historical controversy for well over 2 centuries, a debate that pits straightforward colonial records against whispers of much older, far more exotic origins. Local records from the late 17th century refer to it as a windmill built by an early colonial governor. This seems like a clear and logical explanation. Yet, almost from the beginning, something about the tower felt out of place. Its design, with those rounded arches and specific architectural proportions, did not perfectly match other known English colonial mills of the period. This subtle discord sparked a wave of alternative theories, each more romantic than the last. Could it be a relic of Norse explorers from the Viking Age, a baptistry or watchtower left behind from a fleeting visit centuries before Columbus? Others looked to the Age of Discovery, suggesting Portuguese navigators might have built it as an outpost or navigational aid. The most fanciful theories even wove in the enigmatic Knights Templar, proposing the tower as evidence of a secret pre-Columbian voyage by the medieval order. Each theory paints a dramatically different picture of American history, one where transatlantic contact was not a singular event in 1492, but a series of forgotten chapters. Archaeologists have not been idle in this debate. They have scoured the site, analyzing the mortar composition and excavating around its foundation. The results, however, are stubbornly ambiguous. The materials used in the tower's construction are consistent with what was available in the 17th century, yet the techniques are not definitively diagnostic. It's as if the tower was built with a local accent, but using a sentence structure from an unknown language. The physical evidence refuses to deliver a final verdict, leaving the door open for interpretation and, inevitably, for speculation. This is the true power of the Newport Tower mystery. It perfectly encapsulates how a later, documented structure can become entangled with the powerful human desire for a deeper, more mysterious past. It represents the challenge historians face every day, the difficult work of separating the solid ground of fact from the seductive mist of legend. In a nation still defining its ancient history, such structures become blank canvases upon which we project our fascination with origins, with firsts, and with hidden connections across the sea. The tower does not just ask who built it, it asks why we are so compelled to find a story grander than the one the records plainly tell. Granite can carry a message meant to outlast its creators. In the quiet countryside of Elbert County, Georgia, a most unusual monument rose in the year 1979. Known as the Georgia Guidestones, it consisted of 4 massive granite slabs, each standing over 16 feet tall and capped by a heavy stone lintel. The structure was imposing, almost like a modern-day Stonehenge, but its true mystery was etched into its surfaces. In 8 of the world's most widely spoken languages, including English, Spanish, and Arabic, the stones presented 10 guidelines for humanity. These directives called for maintaining the global population in balance with nature, guiding reproduction wisely, and promoting peace and international harmony. The messages advocated for environmental stewardship, thoughtful governance, and the careful use of language. They were signed only by a pseudonym, R.C. Christian, representing the anonymous individual or group who funded the entire project. From the very beginning, the stones were a riddle. Who was R.C. Christian, and what philosophy or vision inspired this very public, yet completely anonymous, act? The local granite company that executed the work had instructions to deal only with intermediaries, and the true patron's identity was never revealed. This deliberate secrecy transformed the monument from a simple statement into a cultural lightning rod. For some, the Guidestones were a hopeful blueprint for a sustainable future, a set of principles that transcended any single nation or creed. For others, the very anonymity of the creators and the focus on global population sparked deep suspicion, fueling countless conspiracy theories about secret societies and shadowy agendas. The stones became a modern archaeological site in reverse, a place where people came not to dig up the past, but to project their own fears and hopes onto a blank slate of granite. Then, in 2022, the mystery took a violent turn. The monument was severely damaged in an act of vandalism and was later fully demolished for safety reasons, leaving only the foundation. Its physical life was brief, but its symbolic impact endures. The story of the Georgia Guidestones reveals something profound about our relationship with time and legacy. It shows that the impulse to carve a message for the future is not confined to ancient cultures. It is a timeless human desire to speak across generations, to try and guide those who come after us with wisdom we fear might be lost. The stones blurred the line between contemporary art, philosophical statement, and a future artifact. They forced us to ask, what message would we choose to leave behind if we knew it would last for millennia? And in their controversial reception and ultimate destruction, they also demonstrated how the future might not interpret our intentions the way we hope. A message in stone is only permanent, it is never final, always waiting for the next generation to decide what it truly means. A message carved in stone is meant to endure, but a word carved in wood becomes a ghost. In the fading light of the 16th century, a group of over 100 English men, women, and children stepped onto the shores of Roanoke Island, a sliver of land off the coast of what is now North Carolina. They were led by Governor John White, who soon returned to England for vital supplies, promising a swift return. War with Spain and the chaos of the Atlantic, however, trapped him across the ocean for 3 long years. When he finally sailed back into the island's quiet harbor in the year 1590, he found a scene of profound and utter silence. The entire settlement was empty. The houses were dismantled in an orderly fashion with no signs of struggle or battle. The only clues were 2 cryptic carvings. On a post of the fort's palisade, the single word Croatoan was cut into the wood. On a nearby tree, just the letters CRO. Then the trail vanished. The people, including White's own granddaughter, Virginia Dare, the first English child born in the Americas, were simply gone. It was as if the land itself had swallowed them whole. This is the enigma of the lost colony, America's oldest unsolved mystery, a story that begins with hope and ends with a single, unanswered word. The immediate theory, and the one hinted at by the carving, is integration. The Croatoan were a friendly local group living on a nearby island, and the settlers had previous positive contact with them. The word could have been a deliberate message, indicating where they had chosen to go for safety or a new life. Later reports from other English colonists at Jamestown, decades afterward, included intriguing but unverified stories of gray-eyed natives living in the interior, people who spoke of ancestors that could read from a book. These fragments suggest a tantalizing possibility of cultural blending, a community that chose survival by joining with their neighbors, slowly losing their distinct identity over generations. Yet other shadows linger over the story. Life for the first English arrivals was brutally difficult. Shortages of food, unfamiliar illnesses, and the inherent tensions of a new world could have created a crisis. Perhaps conflict with a different, less welcoming group led to a tragic outcome. Or maybe, in desperation, they attempted to build boats and sail for a safer harbor, meeting disaster on the open sea. The orderly state of the abandoned site argues against a sudden, violent attack, but it does not rule out a slow, grinding dissolution from hardship. For centuries, historians and archaeologists have searched for a definitive answer. They have examined tree rings for evidence of a severe drought that could have caused famine. They have combed the soil of Roanoke and surrounding areas for artifacts with clear English origins from that precise time period, finding tantalizing fragments but never the concentrated evidence of a relocated village. Every potential clue dissolves into ambiguity upon closer inspection. The power of the Roanoke story lies in this very lack of resolution. It is not a puzzle with a missing piece, it is a silhouette where the entire shape is contested. It speaks to the profound vulnerability of those early footholds in a vast, unknown continent, where a community could vanish from the historical record as completely as a footprint washed away by the tide. The lost colonists left behind no bodies, no burned ruins, no treasure map. They left only a word, a name pointing toward a people and a place, a single thread that we have never been able to follow to its end. Their silence is a haunting reminder that history is not just the story of what survived, but also the echoing mystery of what disappeared. The desert holds its messages on a scale that defies simple viewing. While the Nazca Lines are world famous, a similar and equally breathtaking gallery of giants lies in the arid plains of California near the town of Blythe. Here, spread across the stark landscape, are the Blythe Intaglios, enormous figures carved not by adding material, but by the careful removal of dark, weathered stones to expose the lighter, untouched earth beneath. These are not small designs. One human figure stretches over 170 feet from head to toe, a colossal outline that could only be fully appreciated from the air. Alongside it are other forms, including a distinct quadruped that many interpret as a mountain lion, and a coiled, serpentine shape that winds across the desert floor. They are believed to be the ancient work of Native American communities, possibly ancestors of the Mojave or Quechan peoples, created anywhere from several hundred to several thousand years ago. Yet, compared to their Peruvian cousins, the Blythe Intaglios have remained in relative obscurity, receiving far less archaeological study and public attention. This quiet neglect only adds to their enigmatic power. Why would a people invest such immense communal effort to create art they themselves could never see in its entirety? The theories echo those of other geoglyphs. They may have been sacred sites for rituals, where the very act of walking the outlines connected participants to ancestral spirits or deities of the land. They could have served as markers for specific clans, their distinctive shapes representing totemic identities visible to all who knew the symbols. Some researchers suggest alignments with celestial bodies, turning the desert into a vast, permanent observatory where the figures might point to solstice sunrises or significant stars. The true meaning, however, is held in trust by the desert winds. What is undeniable is the profound statement they make about connection. Creating these figures required an intimate, generational knowledge of this harsh landscape. It speaks of a people who did not simply live on the land, but who were in a deep dialogue with it, embedding their stories and beliefs directly into its skin. The silence surrounding their specific purpose is not an empty void, but a resonant space. It invites us to consider a different way of seeing, where a mountain lion is not just an animal, but a powerful spirit, and a human figure is not just a shape, but perhaps an ancestor, a guide, or a map of the cosmos. The Blythe Intaglios challenge our modern scale of value. In a world that often prioritizes the written record, they are a monumental reminder that some of the most important stories are told not in words, but in the relationship between a people and the very earth beneath their feet. A single word carved on a post was not the only cryptic message left behind in the American landscape. In the year 1898, a farmer named Olaf Oman was clearing land near the small town of Kensington, Minnesota, when his plow struck something solid beneath the roots of a young aspen tree. What he unearthed was a heavy, rectangular slab of greywacke stone weighing over 200 pounds. Its surface was covered in strange, angular markings. When scholars examined them, they made a startling declaration. The markings were runes, an ancient Scandinavian alphabet, and they told an incredible story. The inscription, dated to the year 1362, described a party of 30 Norse explorers on a journey from Vinland far to the west. It spoke of a tragic event, noting that 10 of their party had met their end. If genuine, this stone would be a historical bombshell, placing Scandinavian travelers deep in the heart of North America, over 130 years before Columbus and far inland from the only confirmed Viking site at Elance Oaks Meadows. The immediate reaction was a mixture of awe and deep skepticism. For over a century, the Kensington Runestone has been caught in a fierce and unresolved academic war. The central charge against it is linguistic. Most experts in Old Norse language and runology point out that the rune forms and the grammar used in the inscription contain elements that seem out of place for the 14th century, instead reflecting a 19th century understanding of the language. They argue it is a clever but ultimately flawed creation by a Scandinavian immigrant familiar with runes, but not with their precise historical evolution. It would be, in essence, a modern forgery, perhaps intended to give the new Swedish-American community a deep and heroic roots in their adopted land. Yet the stone itself has offered counter-arguments that refuse to be dismissed. Some geological analyses have examined the weathering in the carved grooves. They suggest the degree of erosion and mineral deposition within the runes appears consistent with centuries of exposure, not a few decades. The fact that it was found tangled in the roots of a tree estimated to be many decades old adds another layer of physical complication to a simple hoax theory. How could a forger have placed it there, The debate, therefore, is not merely about language but about stone and time. The Kensington Runestone has transcended its physical form to become something larger. It is a cultural artifact of our own enduring fascination. It represents the powerful desire to find tangible proof of epic, forgotten voyages, to connect the old world and the new with a narrative more dramatic than gradual exploration. It highlights the tension between academic consensus, built on linguistic precision, and the tantalizing ambiguity of physical evidence that science cannot yet perfectly date. Whether a medieval traveler's record or an immigrant's elaborate tall tale, the stone's true power lies in the questions it forces us to ask about evidence, belief, and the stories we choose to carve, not just in rock, but in our shared imagination of the past. Deep in the woods of Massachusetts, a structure of earth and stone holds its silence. The Upton Chamber is not a grand pyramid or a sprawling city, but a single, intimate room built entirely underground. Its entrance is a low, narrow tunnel that leads into a domed space, a perfect beehive shape crafted from thousands of flat stones stacked with meticulous care. The engineering is precise and ancient, using a technique called corbelling, where each layer of stone slightly overlaps the one below, gradually curving inward to form a roof without any supporting beams. This is not a haphazard hole in the ground. It is architecture, and its design echoes structures found across the ocean, in the Neolithic tombs of Ireland and the ancient sites of Europe. For many, it is simply a colonial-era root cellar, a practical storage space built by early New England farmers. Yet, for others, that explanation does not quite settle the matter. The chamber's orientation is the first clue that sparks deeper curiosity. The entrance tunnel is aligned to catch the rays of the rising sun on the summer solstice, illuminating the dark interior floor on that specific morning each year. This celestial alignment is a feature commonly associated with much older ritual sites, not typically with utilitarian farm buildings. Why would a farmer, focused on preserving potatoes or apples, go to the immense labor of precisely aligning a storage cellar with the sunrise of a single day? The construction itself represents a staggering investment of effort, moving and fitting each stone to create a stable, dry, underground vault would have taken a small team weeks or months of hard labor. While colonial Americans were certainly capable builders, such a specialized and labor-intensive design for a simple root cellar seems, to some researchers, disproportionate. This disconnect has fueled an alternative theory, one that whispers of a far older story. Could the Upton Chamber be a relic from a much earlier time, perhaps built by pre-Columbian travelers from across the Atlantic? The architectural similarity to Old World sites is undeniable, suggesting a shared knowledge or a cultural memory that somehow crossed the ocean. Proponents of this view see it as potential evidence of fleeting contact, a footprint left by Celtic navigators or other European explorers long before the established timeline of history. Mainstream archaeology, however, remains cautious. Without definitive physical evidence like artifacts from the chamber's construction period that can be carbon dated, or clear documentation from colonial records, the official classification leans toward the 18th or 19th century. The chamber exists in a frustrating historical twilight. It is old enough to have lost its specific story, but not old enough to be unquestionably ancient by global standards. This is precisely what makes it, and hundreds of similar stone chambers scattered throughout New England's forests, so fascinating. They represent a category of mystery that is both humble and profound. They are not claiming to be lost cities, but they are quietly challenging the neat boundaries of our historical narratives. They force us to look at the landscape with different eyes. Was every stone structure in the young American colonies built by the colonists we know from textbooks, or could some corners of the woods hold older memories, built by hands whose names are lost to time? The Upton Chamber does not offer proof, it offers a possibility. it invites us to consider that history might be layered like those very stones, with earlier chapters hidden just beneath the surface, waiting for the right light, like the solstice sunrise, to reveal their contours. High above the ancient Inca capital, a fortress of stone defies the very idea of gravity. Sacsayhuamán stands as a sentinel overlooking Cusco, its walls not built but seemingly woven from the bones of the mountain itself. The scale is almost beyond belief. Enormous blocks of limestone, some towering over 20 feet high and estimated to weigh more than 100 tons, are assembled into zigzagging ramparts that stretch across the hillside. To stand before them is to feel profoundly small, dwarfed by an achievement that logic insists should have been impossible for a civilization without the wheel, without iron, and without powered machinery. The Inca in the 15th century are credited with this monumental work, and it served as both a formidable defensive stronghold and a grand ceremonial site for their empire. Yet, the how of its creation remains one of the great engineering puzzles of the ancient world. How did they move these mountains of stone? The most accepted theories speak of incredible human coordination. Researchers suggest the stones were likely quarried miles away, then transported using a system of earthen ramps, wooden rollers, and ropes made from sturdy plant fibers. Thousands of workers would have pulled in unison, coaxing each block across the rugged landscape through sheer collective force and ingenious leverage. The real magic, however, is not in the movement but in the fit. Once in place, each irregular, multi-angled block was painstakingly shaped to interlock perfectly with its neighbors. The joints are so precise that even today you cannot slip a piece of paper, let alone a blade of grass, between them. This was accomplished without mortar, without modern measuring tools, using only stone hammers, abrasives, and an almost supernatural understanding of geometry and stress. The walls curve and lean subtly, a design that has allowed them to withstand centuries of earthquakes that have toppled later Spanish constructions in the valley below. This perfection has understandably sparked wonder and speculation. Could the Inca have possessed a lost technique, perhaps a plant-based solvent that could temporarily soften stone to a clay-like consistency, allowing them to mold it into place? Others look to the power of sound or vibration, theories of acoustic levitation that belong more to legend than to archaeological evidence. While these ideas capture the imagination, they may overlook the true marvel. The most likely explanation is not a single secret technology, but a cultural one, a profound mastery gained through generations of stonework. The Inca were not just builders, they were virtuosos of their material. They understood the grain of the rock, the way stress distributes, and the art of creating a permanent bond through perfect friction and interlocking form. This was a knowledge written in the hands of countless artisans, passed down through practice, not in books. Sacsayhuamán, therefore, does more than baffle modern engineers. It challenges our modern bias that advanced technology must be complex and mechanical. Here, advanced technology was human skill, elevated to an art form and executed on a colossal scale. It represents a peak of pre-Columbian engineering that was not surpassed in its specific mastery. The fortress asks us to expand our definition of innovation. True ingenuity is not always about inventing something new, but about perfecting an ancient craft to a degree that it achieves the impossible, leaving behind a testament in stone that continues to whisper of a civilization that moved mountains, one precise, patient tap at a time. A single stone can become the battleground for competing versions of history. In the late 19th century, as America expanded westward, a team of researchers sponsored by the Smithsonian Institution excavated a small burial mound near the banks of Bat Creek in eastern Tennessee. Within the mound, among other artifacts, they uncovered a flat stone tablet. It was a modest object, but its surface held a series of carefully carved, angular markings. The initial assessment, recorded in the official report, identified the inscription as a form of Cherokee writing, an interesting but not revolutionary find. For decades, the stone sat in a museum drawer, a curious footnote in a catalogue of many discoveries. Then, in the 1970s, a new set of eyes examined the markings, and the story exploded into controversy. A prominent epigrapher, a specialist in ancient writings, made a stunning reinterpretation. He argued the script was not Cherokee at all, but Paleo-Hebrew, a writing system used in the Middle East around the time of the First Temple in Jerusalem. Even more astonishing was his proposed translation of the central phrase for Judah. If this reading was correct, the implications were staggering. It would suggest that individuals familiar with ancient Hebrew script had been present in the Appalachian region centuries, if not millennia, before any known European contact. The stone instantly became a holy grail for alternative historical theories, cited as potential evidence of lost tribes of Israel, Phoenician traders, or other Semitic voyagers reaching the heart of North America in ancient times. The academic response to this claim was swift and largely dismissive. Mainstream archaeologists and linguists raised serious, methodical challenges. They pointed first to the context of the discovery. The stone was found in a burial mound alongside other items typical of the local indigenous cultures of the period, which dated to around the 5th to 8th centuries of the Common Era. There was no accompanying evidence like distinctly Old World artifacts or remains to suggest a foreign presence. The critics then turned to the inscription itself. They argued that the characters could be interpreted differently, and that the proposed Paleo-Hebrew reading relied on a selective and arguably anachronistic arrangement of the symbols. Some experts suggested the markings might instead be a form of indigenous iconography or even a clever 19th century hoax, perhaps created using a contemporary reference book on ancient alphabets that was available at the time. The very fact that the original Smithsonian team did not identify it as Hebrew, despite having experts on staff, was seen as a significant point against the later interpretation. For the majority of the archaeological community, the Bat Creek Stone is a fascinating case study in mistaken identification, not a legitimate artifact of pre-Columbian transoceanic contact. Yet, like the Kensington Runestone, its power lies in its stubborn refusal to be completely dismissed. Proponents of the stone's authenticity point to later, independent examinations of the inscription's wear patterns, suggesting the carving shows weathering consistent with considerable age. They argue that the original archaeologists, expecting to find only Native American artifacts, simply misclassified what they could not explain. This debate, which has simmered for decades, reveals something deeper than a disagreement over scratches on rock. The Bat Creek Stone demonstrates how an artifact becomes a mirror for our desires about the past. For some, it is a tantalizing key to a hidden, more interconnected ancient world. For others, it is a cautionary tale about seeing what we want to see in ambiguous evidence. It forces a fundamental question about discovery. How do we distinguish between a genuine anomaly that rewrites history and an object that simply reflects the biases or errors of its interpreters? The stone's legacy is not a settled fact, but an enduring lesson in the difficult, often contentious, work of listening to what the past is actually saying, rather than what we might desperately wish to hear. From the contentious scratches on the Bat Creek Stone, we travel to a monument whose message is written in the very shape of the land itself. In the rolling hills of southern Ohio, the earth rises and falls in a graceful, purposeful curve that stretches across the horizon. This is the Great Serpent Mound, a breathtaking effigy over 1,300 feet long, depicting what appears to be a giant serpent uncoiling across a ridgetop. It is the largest such earthwork in the world, a ribbon of soil and stone crafted not to house the living or the departed, but simply to exist as a form, a symbol made permanent. Built by the Fort ancient culture around the year 1070, Its silent, sinuous body poses a question as elegant and elusive as its own winding path. Why would a people invest such immense communal labor to create this singular image upon the landscape? The sheer scale of the answer lies in the effort. This was not a casual marking. Moving and sculpting that volume of earth by hand, basket by basket, required a coordinated society with a shared vision powerful enough to motivate generations. The precision of its location is the first clue to its importance. The Serpent is carefully positioned along a unique geological formation, a crypto-explosion structure, suggesting the builders chose this specific, spiritually charged place with great intention. Many researchers believe the alignment goes beyond geology and into the heavens. The serpent's coiled tail and extended head are oriented in such a way that they align with the sunset on the summer solstice, while other curves may point to other significant solar events like the equinoxes. This has led to the compelling theory that the mound functioned as a giant astronomical calendar, a terrestrial map of cosmic cycles that guided agricultural and ceremonial life. To stand at the head of the serpent as the solstice sun dips below the precise point on the horizon would have been to witness a moment of profound connection, engineered into the earth itself. Yet to see it only as an observatory may be to miss its deeper heart. For many Native American cultures, the serpent is a potent symbol woven through cosmology, often representing spiritual forces, the underworld, or life-giving waterways. The mound's form, with what some interpret as an egg in the serpent's jaws, could depict a specific creation story or mythic being whose tale is now lost. It likely served as a central ritual site, a place where ceremonies reinforced the community's relationship with the cycles of nature, the spiritual realm, and their own ancestry. This is the central silence we must confront. We can measure its alignments with modern tools and admire its engineering, but the specific stories, the prayers spoken there, the exact meanings of the symbol to the people who built it, have faded with their voices. The Great Serpent Mound endures not as a riddle to be solved, but as a different kind of text. It is a monument to meaning itself, a reminder that ancient cultures expressed their most vital understandings of the universe not always in words, but in forms walked upon and lived within. It invites us to consider that some truths are too vast for simple explanation, meant instead to be felt in the curve of a hill against the sky, a silent testament to a people who saw the world as a living story and chose to write their chapter directly into its skin. The final artifact in our journey is not a city or a carving, but an object small enough to hold in your hand. In the highlands of Colombia, the ancient Tolima culture left behind a collection of curious gold alloy figurines crafted between the years 500 and 800 of the Common Era. To a modern viewer, their shape is instantly, uncannily familiar. They feature a central fuselage, a distinct vertical tail fin, and wide, triangular delta wings swept back in a design that looks less like ancient art and more like a blueprint for a modern jet fighter or a space shuttle. It is a resemblance so striking it seems to leap across more than 1,000 years of technological history. The immediate, tantalizing question is almost irresistible. Could these be evidence of lost knowledge, a glimpse of advanced aeronautics in a time long before the Wright brothers? Archaeologists, however, offer a more grounded yet equally fascinating interpretation. They classify these objects within a well-established tradition of pre-Columbian art, where stylized representations of the natural world were common. The figurines, they suggest, are likely artistic renditions of insects like beetles or bees, or perhaps stylized birds or even rays from the ocean. The sleek wings could be simplified insect wings, the body a stylized thorax, and the tail fin an artistic flourish. This explanation relies on understanding the artistic conventions of the Tolima people, a symbolic language where realism was often secondary to capturing the essence or spiritual power of a creature. The gap between these two interpretations is where the true mystery resides. It is not necessarily a mystery of ancient astronauts or forgotten flight, but a profound lesson in perception. We see the world through the lens of our own time. When we look at an ancient object shaped like a delta wing, our modern brains, steeped in images of jets and rockets, immediately make that connection. We project our own technological reality onto the past. The Tolima artisan, however, lived in a reality where the most awe-inspiring forms of speed and power were not machines, but the darting hummingbird, the soaring condor, or the iridescent beetle shimmering in the sun. Their art was an attempt to capture that natural magic, to distill the essence of flight as they witnessed it in their world. These golden figurines, therefore, serve as a perfect and humbling conclusion to our exploration of 15 unsolved mysteries. They remind us that the past is not a puzzle to be solved with our assumptions, but a different country with its own language of symbols and meanings. Every mystery we have encountered, from the lost city in the jungle to the coin in the soil, from the message on the stone to this golden insect mistaken for a jet, speaks to the same core truth. Understanding history requires patience, context, and the humility to accept that some answers are lost to time, while others ask us to set aside our own worldview to listen for a different story. These enduring enigmas are not failures of archaeology, but its very heart. They are the open doors that keep us curious, that challenge our narratives, and that ensure the ancient world remains not a closed book, but a living conversation across the centuries. From the golden figurines of Columbia to the silent mounds of Cahokia, a continent's story is told in whispers and gaps. These 15 mysteries are not isolated curiosities. They are interconnected threads in a vast, unfinished tapestry. They reveal the Americas not as a blank slate awaiting European discovery, but as a vibrant, ancient stage where countless cultures rose, innovated, and left behind echoes of their lives in ways we are still learning to hear. Each site, from the lost city in Honduras to the sprawling geoglyphs in California, represents a deliberate conversation with the landscape, a signature of human ambition and belief etched into stone, earth, and precious metal. What unites them is not a shared answer, but a shared silence, a collective question mark that hangs over the official timeline. This absence of easy explanation is not a failure of history, but its greatest gift to us. It pushes the boundaries of conventional archaeology, forcing experts and enthusiasts alike to look beyond textbooks and consider possibilities that once seemed impossible. These enigmas ignite our collective imagination because they speak to a fundamental human desire to connect with those who came before and understand the journey that led to our present. While future technologies like advanced ground-penetrating radar or new methods of material analysis may one day unlock specific secrets, the true power of these mysteries may forever reside in their ability to make us wonder. They remind us that history is not a static record of settled facts, but a dynamic and living puzzle. Each new discovery, whether a coin in the soil or a city under the canopy, is not merely an artifact. It is a key that can reveal an entirely new picture of our shared human past. We would love to hear which of these mysteries resonated most with you. Was it the haunting silence of Roanoke, the celestial ambition of the great Serpent Mound, or the stubborn puzzle of the Kensington stone? Share your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoyed this journey into history's hidden corners, consider subscribing for more explorations that question the world beneath our feet. Keep looking, keep wondering, and remember that the next great mystery is always waiting just beneath the surface.